Hey guys, welcome to another BIM Everyday tutorial. So today I'm going to show you guys how to make a parametric escalator. How exciting! So the other day at the office I had to make a bunch of escalators and they were all different heights, so I figured why not just make one. So let me show you how this works first. So if you go to our parameters here, I have all sorts of formulas, but the main parameter that we're going to deal with is the rise. So you see I have 14 feet here. So you can basically type in whatever height that you want and hit apply. You can see as the height increases, the number of steps increase, and they stay all spaced out. Basically, I'm not going to put a lot of detail into this. I don't think you need to. It's very, very simple. That's why you have like a escalator consultant or an elevator consultant do all the details for you. This will be more for space planning and if you want to do a simple diagram or just your floor plans. When you end up loading it in, it doesn't look half bad. So let's get to it. So I'm going to keep this open and then I'm going to open up another Revit. And first thing you want to do is, actually, let me just go back to here. So this is made in three parts. I have the railing as a family and the step as a nested family. And then I have basically just the truss or the structure modeled within this family. So we're going to start with the step first because that's the easiest. So you want to go to File, New, Family, and just scroll to Generic Model and hit Open. So I'm going to build everything basically in the right elevation. So to keep everything consistent, you want to always make sure you're in the right elevation. So for the step, I'm going to need two parameters, a height of the step and then the length. So I'm going to go one reference plane and two reference planes. And if you remember from the window family, so far this will be basically the same thing. So I want to dimension the height and the length. If you ever looked at a simple escalator drawing, I have this here that I found online. So each manufacturer might be a little different, but generally speaking, the ratio of the length to the rise is 1.732. So this will be the number that will drive everything. You'll see some other dimensions here, but we'll worry about those later. So 1.732. So my height, I'm going to select this dimension. I'm going to create a parameter for it, and I'm just going to call this height. I want to make this an instance parameter because I don't feel like making a type for each version. You might have a lot of escalators with different heights, so it might just be easier for you. So we'll keep this as instance. And then for the length of the step, I'm going to add a parameter and call this length. And again, make sure you pick instance and then hit OK. So if you go over to your family types button, you can see our two parameters here that we have. The height I'm going to end up entering, well actually I'm not going to enter this at all. This is going to be generated from the escalator family that we load in. So that'll make sense in a bit. But the length, I always want to be generated from the height. So I'm going to type here height times 1.732. And then you'll see this will update. And when you hit OK, this will shrink in a bit. So if the height was 2 feet or whatever, it changes. But I'll leave that at 1'3". Then what I want to do is just create an extrusion and make sure you're still in the right view so it'll be stuck to these reference planes, and hit extrusion. You want to use pick lines and make sure that the lock is checked, so that way you can just click on these 4 reference planes and they'll always be stuck to that. You don't have to add extra dimensions. Go over to your trim command and just trim these so they're nice and square, and hit finish. Then we want to go to the floor plan. If you sort of imagine this is the floor plan of the escalator looking down, I want to be able to adjust the width of the escalator, because you might have a 40-inch or a 3-foot or a 2-foot. So you don't want to limit yourself in the width of the escalator. So I'm going to draw 2 more reference planes here. Go to reference plane and then just draw 1. Use the mirror tool and just flip that over. Throw in a dimension here on each of them, and then hit equal, so they'll always be the same. Then you want to do another dimension to the outer 2 reference planes and just set that. So this will be the width of the escalator. So you want to select the dimension and then go up to label and add parameter and call this width. And actually we're going to make this a type parameter because we know we're only going to have 2 or 3 widths, or maybe even 1. So we don't need it in instance. We can just make it a type. So then just hit OK. So what you want to do is just pull this away from the center line first. When you see this here, if you go up to here to work plane, you can see that it's the center line is from the center reference plane, which is this one. So we want to make sure that the ends of the extrusion are stuck to these 2 reference planes. So just go to align, click this one, and then click the extrusion and then lock it. And then same thing here, click the reference plane, the extrusion, and then lock it. And then for the width, if you type in 3'4", you can see that it gets bigger, the reference planes extend, and the extrusion is working. So I'm gonna just save this as step here, and we'll call this step and not final, because that's the final one. We'll get there someday. I don't really care about backup, so I always try to just put it on 1 and hit save. Okay, next we want to do is make the railing. So I'm going to go up to File, New, Family, and again go to Generic Model. Make sure it's just plain generic model and hit Open. So I'm going to go to the right elevation again. Now we want to set up our insertion point, which will be here, but we want to sort of, let's see if I can just draw a quick line here. We want to make the escalator extend from this point. No matter whenever we type in the elevation, it's this that'll either get bigger or smaller. So we don't need that. First, just like the step, we want to create the same relationship of the height and width. So I'm going to go to create and reference plane. So I'm going to do 1 here and 1 horizontal. I'm going to hit the dimension and dimension from here to here and from here to here. So I'll select this one, and this will be our length. So, and this is a new file, so we're not going to have the same parameters, which is fine because we don't want them. We want to just do add parameter and then type in length, and we'll do instance. And then over here for the vertical dimension, we want to make this the height. So type height and do instance. So hit OK, and you'll see the 2 dimensions here. So if I change one, you'll notice the other one does not change, and we don't want that. We want the length to be a ratio of the height. So we'll go over here to our family types, and for the length, we'll do the same thing. Height. You got to make sure it's case sensitive, so you have to type it exactly as the parameter is. Height times 1.732, and let me just check that. 1.732. So there you go. Hit apply, and you'll see that change. So if our height is 20 feet, the length also got a lot bigger. So you can extend these out if you want. Next, what we want to do is sort of make a diagonal line that'll always be based off of the same ratio. So what we want to do is a reference line. The difference between a reference line and a reference plane is a reference line technically has an end and a beginning, whereas a reference plane really doesn't. So this allows you to snap. So if you see here, you'll get this X. You want to click that and click that. So you want to make sure that your line will extend, or basically stick to this intersection. So just click this and change the height, and you'll see that that extends, which is exactly what we want. Change it again, and that's perfect. So if we go over to our final one, you can see how we have just a little base here, some glass, and then this is the hand railing that you actually grab onto. So we'll do the base first. Let's go back to our quick diagram, and you see this is part of the structure. So this takes up about 8'2" and 7'3". So we'll keep those dimensions in mind, but there's no dimension on how far the base extends, so we'll just say it's 3 feet. In fact, let's see what I did over here. We'll go to our right view, and I did 4 feet. So let's do 4 feet. So you always want to lock, or you always want to create reference planes and then dimension the reference planes, and then align and lock your geometry to the reference plane. So let's set this up first. So I'm going to throw in a reference plane here, and I'm going to dimension this to be 4 feet. And I'm going to make this exactly 4 feet, and I don't need a parameter because this is always going to be the same. And then I'll just copy this up to here, and then dimension that to be 4 feet as well, and lock it. So again, this may seem kind of annoying, but you always want to test your parameters as you go along. So if you have any errors, you'll be able to figure out what they are. So you can see the line's still extending, and this is always 4 feet away, so that's perfect. Let's just bring that down. So I think we have enough to do our base. So let's do a extrusion. So you want to go to create, extrusion, and the reason, let me flip over to this one. The reason why we do it separate, two separate families, because if you see I select this says railing and this says railing. We can give the railing their own center reference plane, or their own working reference plane, and not have to worry about doing all the math to make sure these stay the right width. So we can work in this little world here and not have to worry about anything else. So you don't have to worry about your reference plane, just make sure you're in the right elevation, and then do pick lines. So I'm assuming that little base piece is about 6 inches. And again, this isn't for construction drawings or anything. This is just for design drawings, or just to get your space requirements. So I'm not worried about how accurate this is relative to an actual escalator. I do know somewhat that the amount of space that it's taking up is the same, so I think that's good enough. So again, so use pick lines and 6 inches, and just go here and here and there. Perfect. Now get rid of the offset, and then just click on, again, make sure that's locked, and just click on the other reference planes. There and there, there and there. And use trim and trim this up. I think that's about it. Being that I don't have any reference planes for these top three, I want to make sure I dimension those so they don't get out of whack. So click here and here and lock it. You want to tab to make sure it says reference line there, and then click there and lock that. And again, reference plane to 6 inch line and hit lock. So that's it. Hit check, and let's again change our height to make sure it works. Look at that, no surprise there. So let's just go to the 3D view. So we have this base piece here. So let's see how thick I made it. Got to actually open up the railing final. So Got the railing final, and it's 6 inches total, so that's perfect. So let's go back to the one we're working on. So you see extrusion end, being that the whole thing is 6 inches, we can do extrusion end of 3 inches and extrusion start of -3. And that's all we need. We don't have to worry about, if you know what your material is, you can throw that in here like you normally would, but for now we're not going to worry about that. So let's go back to our elevation. So the next thing I want to do is the glass. So I'm going to throw in some more reference planes. So I'm just going to temporarily hide this so I don't get any of my dimensions based off of that. And I'm going to throw in some reference planes. So we'll go to reference plane, and let me do an offset of 3'4", because that'll be the bottom of the handrail. Again, I don't know if that's what it really is by the manufacturer, but for this, who cares? And then I want the top of it to be 3'6", so I'm going to just offset those 2 inches. And then that's it. You don't have to worry about if these are trimmed, or because you're going to put sketch lines over that, so it doesn't matter. Next, I want to lock these. So this line is the height. This is generated from this intersection, and this is the reference line. So as long as I dimension from those lines, I'm good. So I want to go here and click these two, and then just lock them. Same thing here from our reference line, and then dimension these two reference planes. Whoops. Make sure you lock them, and then again dimension from the base reference plane to these two. Lock and lock. Okay, I think that's it. Let me throw in another one for the bottom, which will be 6 inches. So if you were paying attention, you realize I should have done this first, but that's okay. So I'm going to put in the base of this and then lock these dimensions. So 6 inches above. Lock that. That's all right. So it's telling me it would over-constrain the sketch. Not a big deal. It's somehow locked by some other way, so don't even worry about it. If you get that same message, just delete it. And then you want to lock this one. Perfect. So let's do another extrusion. Again, you don't have to worry about the work plane because we're going to nest this into the main file. And then just make sure your lock is on and click on all of these. For now, we're doing the glass part, not the handrail, so you want to just make sure you get the bottom. I think that's it. So you use your trim command and just clean this up. Then you want to put a nice little circle on there. So use this guy and make a circle. Delete that. You don't need it. And do the same thing here. Perfect. And delete. I think that's it. Let's do let's finish that. And then again, let's change the height to make sure it works. Looks good. Let's go to the 3D view and then align this with our base. So we basically want the glass to be over the base. So let's see what we did here. So we did 3 and -3 to keep the reference plane in the center. So we want to do the same theory. So I want my glass to only be 1 inch thick. So I'm going to do, my end is going to be a 1/2 inch and my start is going to be a -1/2 inch. And when I hit enter, you'll see that's right in the center. Usually your family templates have the glass material in there, so you can just click in there and type glass and you can set it to shaded, and you can just see that's looking pretty good. Let's switch back to the right view, and now we'll make the handrail, which will basically be a 2-inch offset from the glass. So again, you want to do create extrusion and do pick lines, and just go around and click on all of the reference planes. You can't exactly make a reference plane for a curve, so just click the curve as one of them and then use an offset of 2 inches. And now you can just use your trim, and that's fine. Don't need those joined. Oh, we need to do the curve here, so click there. Want to end that and do a 2-inch offset. That's fine, we don't want those joins. If you want to add a radius here, which you should, so it'll look nice, you can use this fillet arc and type in a radius of whatever you think looks right. So let's do 2 feet and click there and there. And then we'll do 2 inches less so we don't have to switch tools. Click these. There you go. Let's go back down here. Whoops. Let's do that again. Radius of 1'10" and a radius of 2 feet. And finish. Let's go back to the glass and just add the same radius. So again here, 2 feet and 1'10". Okay, let's go to our 3D view, and again this looks like garbage, so you want to add in the right extrusion. So we'll do 2 inches and -2 inches and hit OK. And you can see the glass is perfectly aligned. I'm actually going to do 8 inches here just to make this a little bigger. So I want to do 4 and -4. Just to give it some more weight when you look at it in plan. And I think that's looking good. So let's go to our family types and then type in a different height and make sure this is still working. Perfect. So I'm going to save this as railing. And hit OK. Because I already have some of the hard work done, I'm going to do a save as of this and call it escalator, but not the final one, and then hit save. We'll load the railing back into this. So first thing I'm going to do is delete the railing, because I'm going to actually load the exact same thing in. Delete the base. Don't believe I need these anymore, so I'm going to delete those, and I'm going to delete these, and I don't need the 6-inch offset. It looks like I don't think so, so I'm going to delete that. Now I'm just left with, again, the same sort of stuff. What I do want to put in though is this end of the truss or the structure and the beginning. So we know this is the reference, so I'm just going to copy this, move it over, and then throw in a dimension, and we'll call that 8'2", and I want to lock that, and I'll move this one over and dimension that and call that 7'3", and I want to lock that. So first thing I want to do is bring in the railing. So I'm going to go to the plan view. And before I do that, you can see this is our center, our insertion point, which is this reference plane and this reference plane. That's the intersection is the insertion point. So I just want to unlock or unpin this and just make this a little bigger, just so I know this is the one I want to reference, and just pin it again. So I'll just close the hidden views and see what I got open. So I have the step open, which is fine. So I'll load that in first. So load into projects and just place that there for now. It's fine. Then I want to load in the railing. So I'm going to open that up. Do open. And then load into projects, and make sure you pick the escalator file. And we use the same insertion points. So what you can do is just align to here, this one, and I believe it's this one, and hit lock. So I want to set up the width of the escalator first. So I'm going to do a reference plane, just like I did for the step. So I'll throw in one and mirror it across the center, and then make sure I dimension it. Click on equal equal, and then put another one between the two outermost reference planes. Select the dimension and do add parameter and call that width. And you can leave it on type because we're only going to have a few. And then we know this escalator is going to be only 40 inches, so you can just put that in there. Then what I want to do is align the interface of the railing with the reference plane for the width. So you can just do align, click that, and then lock it. And then you want to mirror this over the other side. Even though this one was aligned, you still have to align it and lock it again. So align and click that face and then lock. So test out your width, make sure that's working. And it is. Then what you want to do is, we have our step here. So you see if we make this width bigger, the step isn't changing. So you want to associate the parameter inside the step family with the parameter inside the main family. So if you click on if you select the step and do edit type, you'll see the width here. So you have the same parameter button, so click that, and then you pick the width, and this is the parameter inside our main escalator file. So you just hit OK, and then you can see that got bigger. So then you want to make sure this is aligned to the center. So use the align tool, center reference plane, and the center reference plane of the step file, and just lock that. Again, we'll just test this out to make sure, and everything is working. So if I go back to my right elevation, you can see the step is here. So I'm going to flip over to the final one just for reference and go to our right hand view. That's the railing. Hold on, I want to go to the final escalator and the right hand view. And you can see here, what we want to do is an array. So the first step is going to be at this point, which is our insertion point. So I'm going to go back to our working escalator, and I want to move this down. But you'll see here the height, I can just change that, and I don't necessarily want that. I want the height to be slightly adjustable based on how many steps there are and how high the overall escalator is. So on a technical level, the steps will all be the same, but again, this is just a quick space planning reference. So if it's really 1'4" or 1'3.5", nobody cares. We just want to get the overall idea in. So I'm going to make another parameter that I can have a slightly adjustable vertical spacing. So what I want to do is I want to add a parameter and call this vertical spacing. And I want to make this an instance parameter. Hit OK. So the vertical spacing is going to be a formula. And let me go back to my file to see what it is. So it's rise divided by the number of steps. So I jumped ahead for a second. Let me get the number of steps in before I create that. So I'm gonna, what do I do here? So I want to move this. Actually, nope. Let's make the parameter first. So we'll call it vertical spacing, and you want to spell it right. Make that an instance, and for now we'll just make this 1'4". And now you see you have the height here. So I want to click the associate family parameter, and I'll select vertical spacing. So now you'll see these are blue dots versus if I undo that, they were little instance, I don't know what you call these, but you can't, if they're like this, you can't actually align it. So again, I want to put that back to vertical spacing, and now you'll see they're blue dots. So when I align it, it'll actually move over versus change the height and the width, which you don't want. So you want to align the beginning to here, and then the top of this to there. So if I go back to my step, I actually did this backwards. So what you want to do is have the step grow and shrink from going downwards. So if you go to the right hand view and just mirror this reference plane, you can delete this, throw in another dimension here, and then call this height again, and then just take this, drag it down, and then align it to here. And this will make sense in a second. You want to load it into your escalator again, and you'll see it moved around, so that's fine. You want to just pull this away for a second so you can reassociate it, remove the constraints, and again you want to align here, lock it, and lock that. So now when I change my vertical spacing, you'll see it grows from the bottom, that's a little ridiculous. So if it's 1 foot or 1'2", you can see the height changes and the width changes, which is exactly what we want. We eventually want this to be controlled by another factor, but we'll get to that in a second. So I'm going to create an array because we want, based on the height, we want the number of steps to change. So I'm going to select this, and then I'm going to go up here to the array command, click that, and I'm going to click the lower left corner and put it on the top right corner, and then just type in like 6 or something for now. That's fine. So what we want to do is whenever this changes height or width, we want to make sure that the very next one is aligned with that. So use your align tool and click your first one and then your second one. Whoops, I missed. First one and then second one, and then lock it. And then the top of the first one and then the bottom of the second one, and lock that. So we can just test this. If I open up my parameters and just change this to something a little bigger, like 1'4", you can see that the first one got bigger and all the other ones stretched with it. So that's perfect. So now when I select one of these, you can see they're all, whenever you make an array, they become a group, and you can adjust the number right here if I click 6 or something. But just like a dimension, you can make a label or a parameter for the number in the array. So you can see here it says label none, and I want to do add parameter, and we'll call this number of steps. And again, make sure you make this an instance and hit OK. Now you see number of steps is 8. And actually, again, so if I adjust the height in this, you could see this intersection changes, but the railing doesn't. So just like we associated one parameter from the nested family into the main, we have to do that with the railing. So if you see here is height, we're able to just change this, and we don't want that. We want that to be whatever this is. So, and you can see they're both like that. So just select both of these and then click on the associate family parameter here and then pick height. And you'll see now they're both in tune. So let's make this 20 feet. And again, they both extend. So that's perfect. So now I want to make the number of steps a ratio of the overall height of it. And it's important to note that this is an integer, so whatever formula we put here, we have to get it to be a solid number. So what you want to do is type round first, and then put that inside parentheses. So whatever our equation is, it'll always be a solid number. So we can do now, let me just check the final one. I don't need to save. So we could see here we have the rise, which is the overall height of the escalator, divided by this number, which is about the height of the step I want. So I'm going to flip back over. So I called it rise in the other file, but this is height here. So I want to make sure you have to make sure your parameters are the same. So type height divided by 1 foot 4. And you can see now it's telling me I have 15 steps. And that's perfect. So I hit OK. And it looks like that's working. Sometimes it actually works out that the vertical spacing is fine, but if you have some obscure height like 21.4, you can see it's a little bit off. So we have to get this to adjust a little bit. So in this file, the one we're working in, I have vertical spacing as a solid number. So I actually want this to be slightly adjustable, a little bit less than 1 foot 4 sometimes, or a little bit more. And if I go back to our final one, we'll see we're sort of doing the opposite. So we have the rise divided by the number of steps. And then, so we'll type here, the height of the escalator divided by number of steps. And then once you click away, you'll see that got slightly bigger, which is perfect. So if the height is 12 feet and 4 inches, this got a little bigger. At some point, it'll be a little less depending on how this is rounding. But when you hit OK, you'll see, again, the end of this is exactly where we want it to be. Then what we want to do is just put in, we want to put a flat step here and a flat step here. So if I just go to the plan, and then I'll do create component, you'll see I have the step here. So you want to just place this anywhere for now, and then use the align tool and align it to the center. Go back to the right-handed view, and again we have to associate the height with something. So we don't want it to be 1 foot 3, we want it to be exactly what these are. So click on the parameter button and click vertical spacing. Then what you want to do is align it to the beginning, hit the lock, and you also want to align the top. And I want to put another step in, so I'm just going to copy this and just move it a little bit away so it's easier to align it. And then again, align with this, and lock it, and then align the top too. And just to be sure, you can go back to the plan. You can see our second step here, so you want to align this to make sure it's in the center. Perfect. Same thing here, you want to throw in 2 flat steps. So you hit copy. Just put it slightly away so it's easier to align. And then align this. And then bring this up and align. And again, copy another one and align it. Okay, so pretty much there. Let's change the height again to make sure this is all working. And you can see the steps got a little bit smaller, but overall it's about the same distance, 1'4". Usually when you have a even height, the step will be an even height. So that's good. So let's check this out in 3D. So we have our 2 railings and all the steps. We just need the base or the truss of it. So we'll go back to our right elevation. And I'm just gonna hide this for now, temporarily, if you use the sunglasses, and hide element. What I want to do is I have to create reference planes for the bottom of the truss. So I'll do create reference plane, and I know the truss is 3'2" thick, so I'll do an offset of 3'2" and pick lines and just go that way. And I know the truss, when it's horizontal, is 3'8", so I want to just do an offset of 3'8". And you don't need all this extra, so you can just bring that in, and then I'll just copy this down to here, and I can delete these because I don't need them. Then I want to throw in 3 dimensions to make sure these stay aligned. So I'll lock this one, or dimension, and then lock, and then use dimension and lock, and dimension and lock. Then I just throw in a simple extrusion, just like the railing. So I'll do pick lines, make sure that's locked, and I'll just go around. And trim it. That's it. Finish that sketch, and let's check it out in 3D. So let's go to the floor plan actually, and you can see where this is relative to the railing. So I want to just pull this away so it's easier to align, and use my align tool. Click the reference plane here, align and lock it, and then use a dimension to set the actual width of it. And when you hit tab, you'll see this is editable, and just type in 8 inches and then lock that. You can also do the same thing. So select the extrusion here, mirror it over, and again make sure you want to align. So use your align tool, and you'll see down here it'll say extrusion, so that's how you know you got the right thing. So click that and align, and then throw in a reference plane. Sorry, throw in a dimension and then lock that. So go back to the right-handed view, and again adjust the height to make sure it all works. It looks like it is. Great. So then we can just fill in the space here to make it look like it's actually all 3D with another extrusion. So go back to the right elevation, and I want to just fill in this sort of space here. So again, we'll do another extrusion, pick lines, and we'll just go around, make sure you get the reference planes, and just trim it. Again, go up to the top part, use the reference planes that you already have, and then use your trim tool to make this square. And then finish the sketch. Go to the 3D view, and then you can use the align tool again. Use this inside face and lock it, and this inside face and lock it. And just so it looks nice and planned, you can use your join tool and then just join these two together. That way you can see you have your two flat steps, your truss that goes up, and your flat steps up here. And so I think that's it. One last test. We'll click on the family types and we'll see the height here. We'll make that 20 feet. And it looks like everything works. Great. So hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you did, please be sure to like it, and if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe for more great videos. Thanks.